I'm Narelle Todd.
And I'm Essie Susan Smith.
We are the self-publishing author and marketing duo that has sold over 2 million books. But we didn't start out knowing how to sell books. Fast forward past many failed promotions and a lot of lessons learned, you will see how we went from self-publishing newbies to hitting the New York Times bestsellers list and making the USA Today bestsellers list 19 times and counting. We created the Get My Book Out There podcast to give you simple yet effective marketing strategies to increase readership and book sales, so you know what to do, when to do it, and how to do it, as well as some tips for staying mentally and physically well.
Let's get started.
So we are talking, obviously, with Candace today, and she's going to tell us about her author journey, I guess some of the lessons along the way, some of the good stuff. And from what I understand, Candace, you were writing like a memoir or something when you were 8. Is that right?
I was. I'm glad you brought that up. It was a very strange year that year in school. We, all of us kids got our teacher fired in the first semester because she just sat at her desk and put her makeup on. And so in came this new teacher, and we didn't like her because she was new, but she was an art teacher, and we fell in love with her. And one of her first assignments was to make a little trifold, because, you know, we're kids and we're doing paper cutting. And she wanted us to write our biographies. And when you're that age, what do you got to tell? So I made up stuff. I mean, I must have been a writer in practice. I made up stuff about myself. It wasn't even true, but you know, it looked good on paper and I got an A, so it doesn't matter. But anyway, that was my first published work.
Oh. So how would you describe yourselves to us now? So, yeah, who are you as an author? What do you write?
Well, I'm a lot different than that little brownie scout back in the day. Although I've carried with it a lot of those thoughts and ideas and the whole makeup of what a brownie scout is and supposed to do, you know, and all that honor and love and what have you. But my writing now, I am a sweet contemporary with a magical twist. I used to say paranormal romance, but that just scares so many people. And I was at a writer's signing a couple of weeks ago, and I posted on my Facebook page about this lady that just came up and looked like the devil. She did not. She said, paranormal, you almost saw her run for the hills. And then she stopped at the true crime guy next to me and bought his stuff. And I'm like, whatever. But I think people just don't understand paranormal romance, especially light paranormal. So when I say it's contemporary romance with a magical twist, then they want to know about it. So I've written for 2 series, and I will start indie writing next year, 2022. I was very fortunate to be asked to be in a Nocturne Falls universe series, and I invented a family and took them on a journey. And then I invented another family for the second series. And humans and paranormal humans are not my only character. I look at a small town. I'm a small town romance writer, and that small town is as an important a character as any of the ones that live and breathe. So that's where I am. I retired full-time in 2017. No, that's not right. I retired in 2014 and then started writing full-time and published in 2017. That's kind of where I am right now.
So do you find yourself, oh, sorry, Nora.
No, you go.
It's just when she said retire, today we were talking to all these different people about the fact that they've retired, and they end up finding themselves even busier now than they were before. Have you discovered that?
Totally. I don't know how I got life done when I was working. Well, I didn't. You know, you just get in a habit when you're working. You get up, you go to work, you come home, you're exhausted, you get up and you do your thing. You don't have a lot of me time. And now that I have me time, and I can do what I want to do, and writing is number one of that, but I can also do things during the week. I can go to Walmart if I want to in the middle of the week. I don't have to wait till the weekend and jam it all in, but time goes so fast. This particular year has been it's just been a blitz. I can't believe we're in November. But yeah, I'm busy every day. I've got to keep a calendar. I didn't do that much when I worked because I had a work calendar, but not a home life. So now it's like, whew, lots, and it goes fast.
And you like to garden, is that right? I think I've seen some.
Yes, I do. Yeah. We moved to this little coastal town 4 years ago, and we gave up a lot. We moved into a condo and I didn't get a chance to dig in the dirt, and I love to dig in the dirt. I had a garden plot where I lived before, and I got on a list, and took about a year before enough people. There's a lot of seasonals that live in my town. A lot of people go home to Canada or up north, and then they forget about the garden. So I finally got a plot this year, and so I've got things growing in it. This is Florida, so we can grow things right now. I've got peas coming up and green beans coming up and spinach coming up. So I'm sure people up north are going, say what? But it's really the beginning of our real garden season because the heat's over. So
It
yeah,
is. I mean, we have a garden. We have the raised garden beds, and we've been picking the green beans. And oh my goodness, they are so much better than what you can get.
Oh, they totally. My first batch of green beans failed, and that really disappointed me, but I put the seeds back in and I just said, you're on your own, guys, and they're doing much, much better. And I had a real problem with a bunny, and I even hashtagged him. He was bad bunny. He would come into my garden. I thought he was cute when he was in the neighbor's garden. Oh, look at him eating things. And then he found my garden and he was stripping the leaves off of everything. So my husband and I put a little fence around it, and we're like, got rid of him. But there are other critters. Squirrels can jump it. So, there's always vigilance because it's not near me. I have to drive to the community garden. So it's not like I could sit there with a shotgun and blast them out of the garden.
Sounds like that would be good character fodder for some of your books.
Oh, yeah.
Just see you shooting a magical bunny in the butt and turning into something else.
Yeah, he could morph into a big buff bunny.
Okay, now I've totally got Hugh Jackman in the Guardians animated film where he's the Easter Bunny.
Yes. Well, that could work with a little fleshing out. That might work.
So you say, you write small town romance, and the town is as much a character as the characters are.
Yes.
What is it that you love about writing small town romance?
There's a variety of things that I like about it, but I'm not dissing those people that set their books in like large cities or urban types of fantasies. But in this kind of world, I like it because the character is bonded with the community. The people pretty much know each other. Both of the communities in both series, and in my new series, it's going to be pretty much the same thing. There are ordinary people that visit, even work there, that don't understand the magical layer. So they don't understand the people that have true magic. So there's kind of like two worlds. But without that encouragement, especially in the series that I've written, these magicals they could make it in New York City, but they are lonesome. They're outcasts. And when they come back into their community where they were raised or where they feel comfortable or where they have camaraderie, and it takes on its own vibe. So I think that's what's fun. And you can create your own little storefronts, and you can create your businesses and your schools and your kids and everything, and you own it. It's your real estate, so you can do whatever you want with it.
And do you do like I just have this picture of you with maps or photographs, where you've created your world and it's up on the wall. So like say I was driving down Main Street, or your Main Street, however you say it over there. Is that kind of how you do it?
Yes.
Do you have a visual sort of thing, or
yes.
is it just all in your mind?
I'm one of those that creates a story Bible. And so that Bible has characters and their whole makeup and ancillary characters that may never make it in the book, but they're in there. The setting, the community, the town. Yes. And especially in the previous two, I mean, we were handed the city map. You will write to this city, which is great, because then it taught me how to write my own for my next series. Yeah, and whether the street is straight or whether it meanders, whether there are neighborhoods or whether it's all storefronts. And you need to have that kind of thing, because you can really mess that up. You could have your character living in her apartment in the middle of a gas station when you're talking about gassing up. So you have to really map that out. The reader may or may not get the feel of that, but as a writer, you need to have that kind of pretty well stated. Now, do I post it all over the wall? No, but do I hand draw it? Yep. And I put it in my binder. That is my Bible. Yep.
Cool. And do you ever share that with people?
I haven't shared my new Bible. The other one were shared Bibles. You had to, you printed everything out and had your own binder for your own story, but everything had to go back. The touchstone had to go back. I've got this character's name, this character's magic, and this is going to live in such and such a place. And you had to be sure that nobody else had done the same thing. So in one of my series, my middle series, Candace Colt series, I invented a store pottery shop that was magical, and nobody else had one, so I could create the whole family environment around that. So there's a yes to that. Do you share? Am I sharing my current one? No, I'm not going to share it because there's nobody to share it with. However, I will certainly plug into the story all the different things and the different names of the businesses and the streets and the town. The town has its own little history. So yeah, there'll be that kind of stuff. Sure.
Do you model like some of the characters or even the town after small towns that either you've lived in or that you've visited?
Yeah, I've definitely modeled my new one off the town where I live right now. It's a coastal community that is on basically a peninsula. And so you have intercoastal water on one side, Gulf of Mexico on the other. And that totally turns that whole town into something it wouldn't be if it was in the middle of the United States somewhere in Nebraska. So it's influenced by that. And yes, the answer to that, the short answer is yes, definitely. I model it after something that I know. Yeah. And some of the people too.
Well, I was just thinking, because I know you write for Cat's Paw Cove, and I'm imagining, some of the like the bunny character, or kind of seeping into some of your stories and bringing that real world, garden,
Oh, yeah.
see all of that in your story.
Definitely. In my current book, it's a family of witches, and the grandmother witch. I always have an older person in there because I'm an older person. So I have the sage older person in there that may not be the main character, but it's the one everybody goes to for the wisdom. You know what I mean? So my wisdom witch has an herb garden. She does her own potions. She does her own magic with these things. She hasn't yet had to fight the critters because she wouldn't need to. She'd just zap them and they wouldn't be there. So, the main character is the granddaughter, and she can't cast a spell for nothing. She's tried. So, she'd be the me in the story, trying to figure out how to do this, and she resists being the witch and all of like that. But yeah, the garden is very important. The plants, the wildlife, the water. I mean, you live on the water, it's a different world. It's a good world, but it's a different world. So the answer is yes.
In writing Small Town, I imagine it to be a very diverse environment. So firstly, you've got that whole thing where you literally have characters of a whole range of ages doing all sorts of different things. Your character, the town is also a character. So you've got this almost from the get-go, this complexity of characters in that you are not just developing, say, your heroine and hero, you're also needing to develop out the town, all the other characters.
Yes.
And I think that is not necessarily something you need to do with other genres as such. You may develop out, say, obviously the main characters and then a minor character here or there.
Mm-hmm.
But Small Town seems to be as though you're going to have to do a lot more planning, and you're setting it up right from the very beginning with this whole range of people. How do you do that?
Well, my experience, I got lucky. As I said, I was invited to write in that first series that they call a universe. Okay, so it's Nocturne Falls universe, and a lot of it was already set up. So you knew the characters, you knew what businesses they were in, and you knew how the community affected them. But then when it's your turn to come in and my turn to write my own, every business has its little story. Every shop owner, even the grocery store, everything has its own uniqueness. And it's not to say I write a character Bible about the Five and Dime store. I don't do that, but it's like, and Five and Dime for the Australian in the room is kind of like the little dollar store kind of a thing concept. But you would have people that work in there that maybe your main character went to high school with, and they were trying to be witches together or something. You know what I mean? You do thread them together. The character can't be just spurious. They've got to have a connection. The business needs to have a connection. When you're hungry for bagels, you're going to go to the Baga Bagel store. You know what I mean? So, and they're running that as a little lady that you thought had died years ago. So and maybe she did. paranormal. But, so the answer, yes, you have to thread it together just as you would develop the character. You would develop the town, develop the vibe of the town. As I said before, sometimes in my new series, my character drives over to Tampa from this little coastal town, and Tampa's like a monster now, and it's like different kind of sense, but it's a big place with a lot of charm in some neighborhoods, but it's just getting to be freeways and whatever without a lot of personality. Personality comes in when you drop back in and make a small town romance.
So what's the planning like? Because to me, it would be a small town. You would have to do a heck of a lot of planning, potentially a lot more than for a different kind of genre. What do you reckon? How much time do you reckon you've spent on your new series just planning?
I spent probably a good 6 months, and it has evolved as you get in. I'm not a planner and I'm not a pantser. I'm somewhere in the middle. And as you get to writing the story, you need something new, so you gotta develop that one pretty quick. Now the way I sketched it out in the beginning was just thinking about favorite places in my community. What do I like? I like the beach area. I like the bars. I like, the marina. There are certain places that I really like. And the fact that in our town, there's a lot of great, big, huge 3-story homes sitting on a block that have 1-story and 2-story next to them. Well, that fascinated me. So now I have the first place you see in the story is a 3-story house. It's the grandmother's house. It's the big house that, everybody knows is in town, and they know that family. And it's sort of built from there. The male character needed a job. He was kind of a derelict magical, and he came back to town or else go to jail because his dad gave him 2 choices. You can go to jail or you can take over this restaurant. He took over the restaurant, and he ended up, it flourished. He and the restaurant flourished together. They grew together, and he's made a pretty good living at it. So yeah, you take that and you have to mesh those locations and those parts of the locations with what your character needs or wants at that time. Then it grows. It just kind of grows.
So I hope there's a good coffee shop.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, rub it in.
We need good coffee.
It's Baga Beans. The name of the town is Baga Shores, and it's named after an ancient Indian tribe that actually lived around here called the Tocobaga Indians, and they died out over 12,000 years ago. But the name keeps hanging on, and there are still some burial mounds, believe it or not, around here. There are no living relatives because that tribe just vanished. It was one of those sad things. But that's the town's background, and so it's called Baga. So I got Baga bagels, Baga beans, coffee shop. I mean, you can mess with that all day long. So anyway, good coffee.
Awesome. I'll be right to go. So you talk about the fact that you have moved away from saying paranormal and it's now with light magical touches.
Yes.
So what does that look like? What's a light magical touch?
The light touch means I'm trying to think of something that would be heavy duty paranormal. I don't write vampires, although I have had my characters associate with vampires in my other books. So when people think of paranormal, and I think of that lady that just went nuts in my recent book signing where she just looked at me and her face just contorted and she raced. I think she's thinking that it's going to be like The Walking Dead. It's more like horror. There's going to be terrible things that happen. I think that outcome or that the way that they picture it or their schema for what a paranormal is, it's a ghost that must be awful and it must scare people to death. Well, no, these are just ordinary people with extraordinary gifts. And that's what I try to explain. If I get them to come closer to me at one of these book signings, I try to explain that to them. Everybody, and then you'll get a person or two that'll say, "Oh man, I know exactly what you're talking about. My aunt used to," or I have a funny feeling once in a while. So when they can start to relate to it, they're not as frightened. But when I say light or sweet paranormal, that means no sex on the page. That means there's going to be love, but it's not going to be, in your face. It's going to be more about the character's transformation. But in my humble opinion, it makes the writing more fun when they have a magical gift. Sometimes that's their deepest conflict. In my current one, it is because she just repudiates magic. And here she's come back home to the magic town. So, she's got to sort through all of that. But it's also a way to create kind of a buffer buffer between the problems of your character and the problems of your reader who might over-identify with that problem. You know what I mean? It might hurt them too much to see that your character's hurting if it didn't have the magic shield in front of them. You know, it's hard to relate to a witch who repudiates witchery, but it might be harder for that person to accept some tragedy that happened in the family that turned them off that she identifies too much with. So anyway, I use it in that way too. It's sort of a strategy.
When you were mentioning it, I could automatically relate to some of the things that you were saying in my own personal life. And especially with when you mentioned the witch that was coming home, that did, she was coming back home and it was a place that she didn't feel comfortable with because she didn't feel comfortable with her own specific skill sets.
Right. Exactly.
And I think, it's something that if readers, like you said, if they can look over the fact that you're doing the light paranormal, the light magical touch, they could really relate to those characters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've added another dimension to this lady. She's a single mom, and her little 7-year-old kid is mute. He can't talk. He's never been able to talk. He draws, he can write, he's intellectually wonderful, but he can't speak. And guess what? He's also magical. He inherited the family gift. He's a little Dreo, which is a Celtic version, and he can lift things. And he's loving this new thing. He can lift up stuff. He can raise up anything you want and watch it float around. And she's having trouble controlling this kid. So that's the reason she comes home. She needs help. For single moms out there, there's a little something to identify with. I think every mom of every son especially thinks there's something going on with that kid, and this one's obvious. This kid has magic, but I think most moms would agree. My son, I can relate to that. You don't know what my son does. And so they can relate to it in kind of a step back kind of a thing.
So you mentioned that when you started writing, you went with a trad publish. Now you're going to be self-publishing.
Yeah.
What's been, would you say, the biggest journey in making the mindset shift or the headspace shift from trad publishing to self-publishing? What have you found along the way?
Writing, the writing doesn't change, but the thing out there is I'm doing all this. It's on me now. I'm not going to edit and get a cover and send it off to somebody and they're going to do all the work and I'm just going to sit back. When I realize it's all on me now, that's kind of energizing, but it's frightening, because this is first for me. Some of my other author buddies, like Susan and different ones, they've done this. This is like old news for them. But for me, and I really empathize when I hear and read my writer friends saying, I was so scared to press that button to upload it. This is it. This is the big one. I mean, you're really launching that little puppy all by yourself, and nobody to blame but yourself if it fails. Nobody to slap you on the back when it does well except yourself. I mean, that's the whole self piece, I think, is the biggest part of it. It doesn't really change the writing. In fact, it kind of energizes the writing because this one's mine. I can do it any way I want. I don't have to follow a Bible. I can do it any way I want. So that part's really, really been fun.
I think that's one of the things that I noticed as well is, like what you were saying is it's very energizing, but it could be frightening.
Yes.
But I think being an indie author, there can also be a lot more of the kudos for doing it. I know that there's a lot of people out there cheering us on, not just the readers, but other authors that get very excited, when someone finally takes that initiative and presses the enter button and joins us renegades out there.
Well, and it's a big part of publishing now. It never used to be. I mean, back in the day, a self-pubbed person was really looked down upon and that their work wasn't quality, so that's why they couldn't get it picked up. When that mind shift is certainly in the author world, that mind shift has really changed, and then you look at traditional publishing today, and that's nothing what it was 20 years ago. So it's a better place to be an indie pub, but you really have to have your stuff together to get ready to do it.
Yes.
What's your best couple of pieces of advice for new authors? So, and I'm meaning new for you. So you're self-publishing. So that part that, is new for you. What would you recommend to authors new to self-publishing? What's a couple of bits of, what's your best wisdom?
My best wisdom is to prepare, to really get a handle on what it means so that you're not up to the plate and then realize you left the bat in the truck. You know what I mean? You've got to know all the pieces and parts. It doesn't mean, as I was for the last year, not ready to be there yet, but at least I know what to bring to the baseball diamond. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's a big one. I think there's so many folks, and I've met many of them that are indie pubbing, and a lot of my local writer friends are indie pubbing, but they don't really understand the whole piece behind it. They don't understand the advertising. They don't understand you have to do it. And so many people are just hanging back thinking, well, if I wait long enough, an agent will find me. But the other piece of advice is to write the darn book. Be fearless. Write the book. You can always edit out stuff that doesn't work, but it's hard to put it in once you're done. You know what I mean? So I think, and third piece of advice is find yourself a really good editor. Never think that you can edit your own work. You can proofread your own work. You can run it through a computer program, but you need that objective set of eyes. And I think a lot of writers feel they can do that. They don't need that. I think they need that.
Well, I know even as many books as I've written, I still, I have 3 different editors and we go through it over and over and over and over. And, there's still going to be maybe that occasional comment that shouldn't have been there or should have been there, or that word that shouldn't have been there or should have been there that we may miss when you're looking at, tens of thousands of words.
Yes.
So, it's always good, like you said, is to have that person reading, the editor who's looking at it objectively. So
Yep.
Where do you see yourself a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now?
I love that question. That sounds like the interview question. Where do you see yourself in this company in 3 to 5 years? I see more comfort level with the production. Okay, getting it out there and not resting on the laurels, but launching them and seeing where they go. I have this series definitely in my head. And so I haven't put it on paper. I'm not like some people who can plot out a whole series. I can't do that yet. I'm so focused on one. But I can see 3 to 5 books in this particular series. And then I want to pick up, I've got that little secret project that might be coming to fruition next year that would take me into a little bit special genre. So I could see some of that happening too. So I see in the next, I see 3 books to 4 books next year, 3 books each year subsequently. Kind of watching how these guys do and see how my little puppies do when they wander off and see what people say and watching the market. I know we don't write to the market, but you got to see where, you got to, as I think it was Gretzky said, you got to skate to where the puck is.
Yeah.
If the puck is over there, you better write to it, and don't be sitting here waiting for the puck to come back because it's already gone into the goal. So there's got to be a bit of that business head on your shoulders when you're writing. You can't write this when this is done. You can write a few, but, just be mindful they might not be successful in the market. Yeah. And I see myself writing some shorties too. I'm liking that idea too, taking, as we've learned in some of our program, taking the day in the life kind of thing and it's doing some little spin-offs so that there's little bits and pieces always available for the reader.
Do you have a reader magnet for the readers to come take a look at some of the things that you write?
I have a reader magnet. If you sign up for my newsletter, you'll get a little snippet of the precursor to what started the whole Blessings series that I wrote for Cat's Paw Cove. And that series, and I get started on that and I'll take up another hour, but it's a little snippet and it takes you back to 1700 and you see where the American side of this magical family starts. And then you read the rest of the family and you have a better idea of what's going on. And I know Susan's heard this before, but my 9th great grandmother was one of the witches that was hung in Salem Village back in the day. And when I found that out, it was like, wow, my mind was blown. I had no idea because, in the old days, our parents didn't have Ancestry.com, so they couldn't research this stuff. I don't even think my family knew it. But anyway, when I figured that out, I said, okay, none of them were witches. They were just persecuted for God knows what reasons. But what if there were, and the premise of my whole Blessing series is what if some of the magicals escaped? And so the Blessing family took off and left and settled in North Carolina, and then progeny, and then they ended up in Florida, still with magic. But that's kind of how that thing started. So the reader magnet takes you to that first little story, the little short story that kind of introduces the whole line.
Utterly fascinating.
So
Yeah.
that's the cover from One of the Cat's Paw.
Yep,
shows.
that's the first one. Yep. She was
Not
the
the reader
first.
magnet.
Yep. Well, the precursor to that is actually the reader magnet.
Yeah.
And that gal was the first in the family, the first female in the family to bear the gift. It had always been men, and she was the first female, so that didn't help her any. And so, she was a college professor who was able to bring the dead forward. She didn't tell people why she was straightening out history. She couldn't do that, but she was bringing the dead forward, and she'd straighten out historical inaccuracies. Then they started hounding her. They wanted their say, and they wanted their say. So she gave up the professor life and then opened a pottery shop. So
Awesome. So if people go to CandaceColt.com.
yes, and subscribe.
Yes. So
hit the subscribe button.
CANDACE.
Yep.
For Candace. Yep. Colt COLT.
You want to
.com.
hold that cover up again so that they can see?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that
we'll
was
put it on the.
And there it is, Candace
That's the-
Colt, and go to CandaceColt.com.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you can get the precursor, the prequel to this series. And I had fun writing it. I always have fun writing it, and that's a question I hate to hear. What's your favorite book? It's like, okay, which kid do you want me to say is my favorite? And that's what every author always says. But, at the time I'm writing it, I love that book.
Yeah.
And as soon as it's out, I love that book. But I enjoyed inventing that family, that Blessing family. I just thought, man, this is a weird bunch. And so I just kind of sat in the back seat and let them tell the story.
That's so cool. Thank you so much, Candace, for chatting with us about small town. How
loved
you
it.
develop all those sorts of things. That's really cool. Loved it.
Everyone, make sure that you go by CandaceColt.com and sign up for that reader magnet, and then make sure that you download some of her books, because it's just fascinating knowing that you're, what was it, great
Ninth granny. Yep, ninth great granny. Yeah. Well, this was a blast, ladies. Thank you.
Thank you, Candace.
Thank you.
Right here.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Hey, thanks for joining us today. We've got way more information we want to share with you to increase your book sales. So please come and join me at facebook.com. Get my book out there.